Welcome to another episode of the Snap Fantasy Football Podcast, your weekly dose of news and advice that comes to your pocket every single Saturday. Holding it down, here we got Mac, Mark, Scott, and Landon. Enjoy today's show. Hey, welcome back to the Snap Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Mac, and I'm joined with my boys, Scott, Landon, and Mark. Guys, Austin Hooper is now officially a Cleveland Brown. Man, how much talent can you put on one team before you become relevant?
Well, somewhere in that franchise, they had enough to pay this man $44 million over 4 years, including $23 million in guarantees. Loved having him on a fantasy team last year. And just looking at this squad, it is an obvious boost in talent for the Browns, but like you said, Mac, we kind of said that the overload in talent was evident last year. So now we're looking at a team that has even more hungry hands on the offense here. So last year, just to give a loose overview of things, they picked up Odell Beckham Jr. They picked up Jarvis Landry. They had David Njoku, who is expected to do what we've always expected him to do. And now, going into 2020, we are looking at a team that has many of the same things going for them. The hype has slowed down considerably.
Don't forget Kareem Hunt, though.
Well, and that's just, I was just talking about the receivers here, but it is seeming like, you know, as much talent as an offensive roster can have. So like I said, we've seen this happen before, where the Browns are in this power-heavy position. But does Austin Hooper really add to that clout? Like I said, loved him on the Atlanta Falcons last year, but me personally, I don't love what that system and what Baker Mayfield has done with his quarterback, with his tight ends over the years. So, Scotty, why don't you give us a little rundown on what Hooper's stats looked like recently?
So Hooper's stats last year were actually terrific. He was the tight end one through, I think, the first 10 weeks of the season ahead of Travis Kelce. So that gives you an idea of who they just managed to reel in.
Like ahead of Travis Kelce with a bye week.
Absolutely. Like, I think it was 75 receptions, almost 800 yards, 6 touchdowns. Like, his numbers were pretty unreal, especially when you look at what his ADP was in last year's fantasy drafts. Now, with the move to Cleveland, I mean, I hear your concerns, and there is a little bit of O.J. Howard surrounded by the receiving core of, you know, of Godwin and whatnot that I will acknowledge. And I'm a little worried about that because I was really high on O.J. Howard last season. That being said, I love this move. I love it from a football perspective for the Cleveland Browns. I love it from a fantasy perspective. And I'll tell you why. You can only assemble so much talent until a team has to become relevant. And if nothing more, a good, reliable tight end that the rest of the league knows is a reliable, good tight end does wonders for making linebackers commit to pass coverage. And when your outside wide receivers are Beckham and Landry, I mean, I just don't see how this offense isn't able to at least make a push for the playoffs in the upcoming season. From a fantasy perspective, the same things I said, I think they still apply. You've got a lot of mouths. You've got some hungry wide receivers on either side, but I think the check down potential for Hooper this upcoming season is unreal because both Landry and Beckham can stretch the field with the best of them. And if they're both double covered or covered deep, you know what they're going to be doing? Checking down to Hooper. Catch and run. I think it's going to be a good season. Maybe I'm too excited. Mayfield still has to prove that he is the man. But I'm pretty high on Hooper. I loved what he did last season, and I think Cleveland could potentially make a push for the playoffs with this move.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah,
good. Oh, sorry, I was going to jump on this.
Jump in there, Mac. I'll finish this off.
Yeah. So what I wanted to say was, Austin Hooper going to Cleveland is great. It gives another piece to the offensive, arsenal. But is he really what they need in order to ascend themselves? I don't personally believe so. A lot of people thought David Njoku is an elite level talent at the tight end position. He struggled, and I think really where I point the blame here, the finger, is at Freddie Kitchens. I mean, he came in and did probably one of the worst jobs as a NFL head coach that you could probably do. Insert Kevin Stefanski, former offensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. People are excited about Stefanski, his potential system, how he's going to use these players. When you look at a team with Odell Beckham Jr., Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, like Mark already listed them, but there's so many good pieces there. How can they not be successful? Austin Hooper, I think, is a huge part of that. I just don't think he's the reason they're going to be good in 2020. From a fantasy perspective, I think Hooper will continue to be good, but like, what's good? A top 10 tight end? That's not too hard to, get to, really. Sorry, boys. You'll have to edit this out. I'm just reading to a class. Oh, you want me to sign off? Got it. I'll just redo this part. So Austin Hooper, I think in 2020 has some decent fantasy value, but what is decent fantasy value? Will he be a top 10 tight end? Yeah, but that's not something that's too hard to aspire to be. Where I think you'll get value is where does Austin Hooper fall in terms of ADP? Because people saw him be the number one tight end for 10 weeks, is this going to be something that trends to him being a top 5 drafted tight end? I hope not. But if that's the case, I'll be out on Austin Hooper. I think the price tag will be too high for what the Browns could potentially give you. Too many mouths to feed in the offense, but should be good for football. So this signing to me is ho-hum. I don't think he's going to be the thing that they need to be elite, but I think Stefanski is a big piece in that. Do you guys agree, or do you disagree with that?
I personally am not going to touch Austin Hooper in fantasy football this year. I think he will be overhyped. I think people will overdraft him, and for that, I am out. It's going to be, for me, this year, I'm going to go after late tight ends. I'm not going to go after the George Kittles or the Travis Kelce's or the top 5 guys. I'm going to go after late guys. I'm going to go after guys like Dawson Knox, TJ Hawkinson, Hayden Hurst, the guy that replaced Hooper in Atlanta is going to be a guy I'm targeting in the late rounds. People love Austin Hooper because he was getting drafted at the 10-11 spot. Delaney Walker was going a full round ahead of Austin Hooper, and that's why Hooper won people, or if he didn't win your championship, he got you in the playoffs. That beginning schedule for your fantasy team is so important, and that's why people love him and will draft him early. I think it's great for Baker Mayfield. I do think it's good for the Cleveland Browns, but for fantasy, I'm not into it. I think it's gonna be fine. I think it's gonna be okay, and he's gonna be a streamer. But where you're gonna have to take him next year, it's gonna be too rich for my blood. And I can't wait to do a late round tight end episode with you guys, and I can tell you all the reasons I like all these sophomore tight ends.
What has landed like more, late round tight ends or rookie players?
It's a tough one.
Kiki QT, always. Always. Every single thing in the league is trumped by Kiki QT. But
with Hopkins gone, he's
hey, I knew you would say, yeah. So statistically, Hooper does get better every year. But can he outdo his last season? Is there any realm of possibility in that happening? 75, 787, and 6 last year in 15 games. Can he do that this year?
No.
I believe so. I don't think that's too hard to do. I mean, he only played 11 games. 11 games last year. Came back for the end, played 9 weeks to start. Like we said, was ahead of Travis Kelce with a bye week, 9 games to his 10, 14.1 fantasy points per game last year. But he was the force-fed target from Matt Ryan, at that position, had no competition. So it was great to see. He does get better year after year, Mark. But how do you do it in an offense with Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry? Like, it's tough. I think you're right. Like, Mayfield needs to step up. Out of anybody of this group, him and Stefanski need to find a way to get this team on the right track. So it's kind of my closing thoughts, I think I should say with that.
There you have it.
Yeah. So listen, guys, thanks for stopping by today. Really appreciate you guys being here with us. If you like the content that you saw, please like, subscribe, comment on this video. Let us know what you thought. If you have any ideas for future segments, you can leave your feedback here. You can get us on social media at @snap_fantasy. We do have a podcast as well. If you've just been finding us on YouTube, we appreciate the love, but we also have a podcast. You can find us on any major podcast platform, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts. A rating and a review on Apple Podcasts is always appreciated by the show. And, until next time, we'll see you guys here on YouTube. Appreciate you. Stay safe out there.